the confident go-getter, the nurturing simpleton, the quick-witted firecracker, the horny vixen. From the Golden Girls to Designing Women to Living Single to Sex and the City to Insecure, there's a reason these women character tropes have endured on television for decades. More than simple stock characters, the sitcom foursome emerged from generations of female characterizations in storytelling. Their modern interpretations and amalgamations of four powerful, everlasting female archetypes we all know from mythology, folklore, literature, and art: the queen, the mother, the sage, and the lover. These archetypes evolved from Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung's writings on the individual and collective unconscious. He described archetypes as universal archaic images expressed in dreams, religious beliefs, myths, and fairy tales. From their most primitive form, showing up in dreams, true archetypes exist relatively unchanged across cultures and time. So while character tropes can be near infinite in their many intricate manifestations, bending easily to fit cultural norms and changing sentiments, archetypes are the most enduring and universal expressions of man and womankind. In every culture, across every time, and woven throughout every religion, we find images that we can immediately identify as the stately queen, empress, or first lady, the sacrificial and emotive mother, or the receptive and naive maiden in shows about young women, but poignant and often sardonic sage, and the lush, sensual, and hedonistic lover. But why do storytellers, television creators specifically, keep returning to the same well, interpreting the same myths, tales, and archetypal patterns over and over and over? According to writer and archetypal consultant Christina Dreiser,
myths in their ancient, impersonal, and universal nature help us make sense and meaning of our lives because they provide a roadmap to the human psyche.
These archetypes are a useful shorthand to connect audiences to characters who can at once feel familiar, beloved, and still fresh. These universal archetypes also resonate as not just people or characters we know, but as a way to understand ourselves and begin to live vicariously through the women we see on screen. As Jung wrote, the form of the world into which a person is born is already inborn in him as a virtual image. In other words, we know these women before we know ourselves. They are part of our ancestral imprint, dancing in our dreaming minds from before we could comprehend their meaning. They're innately a part of how we understand our world. Let's explore some of the deeper meanings, symbolism, and synergies between these archetypes and their on-screen avatars. The Queen.
Everybody wants to be friends with Devin. She's the queen bee, and you want that honey buzz.
Julia Sugarbaker, Dorothy Spornak, Khadijah James, and Carrie Bradshaw. It's no accident that the main character in a sitcom quartet typically radiates queen archetype energy. Queens are strategic social butterflies, often serving as the glue that holds their community together. Whether that community is a house full of women like Golden Girls and Living Single, a business like Designing Women, or a close-knit group of girlfriends like Sex and the City, the queen archetype has a near divine presence that people just like being around. The exception to the main character rule, in my opinion, is Molly Carter in Insecure. Poised, funny, and able to seamlessly move between worlds, Molly was universally loved and admired, easily attracting friends and lovers. Now, relationships were a different story, but we're just talking about her innate ability to attract. In real life and on screen, Women embodying the queen archetype are natural leaders, easily and confidently offering up their ideas and opinions. This leads to lots of queens becoming entrepreneurs, like Julia and Khadijah, or otherwise working independently, like Dorothy and Carrie, who were fairly untethered as a substitute teacher and columnist turned author, respectively. When this archetype is matured, she is a matriarch, looking after the well-being of those around her and providing stability within her friend, family, or work unit. She often serves as the voice of reason within the quartet and, like Julia and Dorothy, can represent progressive and rational thinking.
Dorothy, what about you? You're always the sensible one around here, the free modern thinker who keeps up with the times. Now, what do you think? Ooh.
When she hasn't fully matured, we see the queen's negative shadow side. Psychologist Robert Moore and mythologist Douglas Skelet's seminal King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Rediscovering the Archetypes of the Mature Masculine thoroughly explores the Jungian archetypes they believe every male embodies. These easily map to female archetypes, with king becoming queen, warrior becoming mother, magician becoming sage, and lover remaining lover. In this analysis, they assert that each archetype contains a light and a shadow. Shadows in Jungian psychology are unconscious forces, often repressed, that give voice to our deepest instincts and desires. The shadow queen can either be tyrannical, bossy, controlling, and belittling. Think Khadijah in the first season of Living Single, or Molly in like every season of Insecure.
And you say you're trying, but it feels like I'm the only one who's putting in any effort.
By inviting me to brunch and playing old drinking games? Girl, we haven't even talked about what's really going on.
Or she can represent the other end of the queen's shadow, the weakling, where she's afraid to walk in her stately energy and instead becomes indecisive and unwilling to take control of her life or accountability for her actions.
It was a force bigger than me, like Niagara Falls or something, you know?
No, I don't know. He's married.
I know he's married.
That makes you the other woman. You're the other woman.
I am not the other woman. I'm not. I mean, I know I am, but I am not that woman.
Jung's archetypes are very clearly structured and can be mapped using various psychological and mythical groupings. The concept of extroversion versus introversion, which Jung also popularized, feminine versus masculine, and the classical mysticism concept of natural elements, earth, fire, air, and water. The queen is extroverted and represents the element of earth, which is feminine, firm, and stable, nearly unwavering and unchanging, like the ground we walk on. Unconcerned with matters of the heart or the head or the spirit, the earth element is fixated on the physical world, sights, sounds, tastes, smells, and touch. Queen energy is seen throughout the tarot deck too. She is the Empress, which depicts a young woman, sometimes pregnant, wearing a crown and surrounded by abundant fields. She's fertile and content and reigning over her territory, no matter how small or large. She's also found in the Queen of Pentacles, which is similarly imbued with symbolism around fertility, which speaks to her ease at giving birth to what she wants, whether that be babies, businesses, projects, or anything in between. In mythology, the queen is represented by the Greek goddess Hera, wife of Zeus and goddess of marriage, women, family, and childbirth. Frigga in Old Norse, and Hathor in ancient Egyptian. Oba, the first wife of Shango, is the Queen Orisha in Yorubaland. These goddesses were distinguished from similar patrons of love or romance by their devotion to the family unit and by their marriage to the most powerful god in their pantheon. This speaks to the true nature of a mature queen archetype. She is a true consort and is best suited for a power couple. Take Khadijah's dating history. Though she wasn't an out-and-out trophy wife in training like Regine, the men who sustained her attention were good-looking and just as successful as her. In fact, their respective careers were part of their appeal to each other. And look at Dorothy. For as much as her mother, Sophia, ragged on her getting knocked up in high school by a self-proclaimed Yutz, she was a first-generation college grad and professional, even if she didn't ascend to the top of her chosen field. Her ex-husband Stan is inconsistent, but eventually does make good on his dream to become rich and spoil Dorothy. Dorothy's second husband is also very wealthy, and she spends the second half of her life as First Lady of Hollingsworth Manor. All in a day's work for a queen. Not every queen so neatly fits into this archetype, as these are generalities and every trait won't apply to every character. Other times, at first glance, another character from the show might seem to suit the queen archetype better. In Sex and the City, for example, there are times when Charlotte or even Miranda would seem to more closely mirror the queen. Charlotte, adept at homemaking, hosting, and other wife duties, definitely embodies the queen in those moments. Miranda, completely uninterested with any aspect of the intellectual or spiritual, also displays queen traits in her staunch dedication to the earth element. She was also the first of the women to become a mother and was one of the two who were married at the end of the show's run, stepping fully into this aspect of her queen energy, even though it wasn't her dominant archetype. And archetypes can be fluid, especially later in life. Jung's contemporary Tony Wolff elaborated on this in Structural Forms of the Feminine Psyche, writing that, as a rule, one form is the predominant one and may be joined by another, while the third and fourth are at first unconscious and can be made conscious and integrated only with difficulty and during the later part of life. This is part 1 of 4 videos I'll be doing that explore these 4 predominant feminine archetypes. Parts 2, 3, and 4 will look at the mother, sage, and my personal favorite, the lover. Tell me what you think in the comments. What other television or film characters embody the queen? Where does the queen archetype show up in other forms of pop culture? And be sure to check the description box for notes, references, and further watching on feminine and masculine archetypes.